Greetings, adventurers! Thanks to everyone who checked out the Staff of Ra headpiece video.
Indiana Jones. Always knew someday you'd come walking back through my door.
And today we'll be taking a look at 2 more indie items before we close the tomb on the world's greatest adventurer. Hasbro reissues of the original 1982 Kenner Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones, and Marion Ravenwood figures. And if you can't find them in your area, Big Bad Toy Store currently has them in stock, along with other Raiders reissues. Just search Indiana Jones Retro and they'll come up. Are they worth $16 each? Well, the price of everything is a few bucks more than it should be these days. But if you're like me and have always had a passing interest in owning the originals, but have no interest in dropping $900 on a carded Indy? $1,250 on a carded Marion? Then $16 each, plus a few bucks for shipping, is a much more responsible alternative in these economic times. Here's a look at the 2 figures carded, which is how I think they display better, even though I'll be opening them in a minute. Reusing the screen stills from Raiders, and generally the same graphics with a few tweaks. The Kenner logo is back, just like the old days.
Indiana Jones and other action figures new from Raiders of the Lost Ark collection, each sold separately, new from Kenner.
The sturdiness of the old cards is not, though. Super 7 seems to be one of the few companies that uses thick cardstock for cards anymore. Here's Indy in his plastic tomb, on display like so many relics he's discovered, robbed, and Marion, with not the most flattering picture of her they could have used. She must have seen the price of how much her original carded figure goes for. And on the back, a picture of Indy and Marion, along with some Nazis. I hate these guys. So much so that I don't even want to own toy depictions of them, even for Indy to beat up on. Marion may be a strong, feisty female character, but her figure needs a man to prop her up. Literally. She can't stand worth a dang. Indy's not bad though. A bit wobbly, but he can stand a little more stably than an O-ring G.I. Joe. They have foot peg holes for stands, but they're a strange size. Smaller than O-ring Joe stands, and smaller than modern Joe stands. The original 1982 Marion figure came with a stand, because Kenner really did care. They knew the figure had trouble standing and needed extra help, so they included a clear stand. But the reissue doesn't have one. A mini Kaiser doll stand won't work because she's too short for it to hold her around her waist, and putting it around her neck just makes it kind of look like some kind of Nazi torture device. Cheapest and easiest thing to do is just grab any stand and some sticky tack. Voila, problem solved. Now she can get funky like a monkey without falling over.
Let's get funky like a monkey, baby!
And speaking of getting funky like a monkey, she comes with a treacherous, poison date-eating monkey, just like the original. It can't do much. Actually, it can't do anything other than just sit there. Indy can grab it by its tail if you want to add it as a weapon to his arsenal. Indy's 2 accessories are his pair of iconic weapons, the bullwhip, which, when it's coiled up, can be hooked onto Indy's hip thanks to a hook similar to Shipwreck's. And unlike Shipwreck's boarding hooks, stays on there pretty snugly. A life-size bullwhip doesn't fit as well. When it's uncoiled, it looks more like a cowbell than a whip, thanks to the weird handle. He can barely hold it in his left hand. It doesn't take much force to knock it out. And despite my best efforts, I couldn't get him to hold it in his right hand. Which is a real shame since the right arm has a spring-loaded feature, and it would have been cool to be able to use the whip with it. You'll have to settle for just whipping the figure around when he holds it in his left hand. Vintage Star Wars and Indy figures were made for play, not display. But as far as a pose for display on your shelf goes, I think this is the best the figure is capable of. Arm raised in mid-whip action. In defense of bad vintage whip accessories though, it was a tough weapon to do well. Beastman's had a weird-looking handle too, and there wasn't much you could do with Leoric's as well. Indy's other accessory is a tiny revolver. It can be holstered somewhat on his leg, Better than O-Ring Joe leg holsters, since O-Ring Joes didn't have leg holsters, so there's that at least. But the coolest thing about this figure is, once you get the gun in his hand, which can be tricky, the hands are so bad on this figure. Even if he can grip his revolver, it's very loose. But once you get him to hold it, you can have him fast draw the revolver. And the best part is you can lock the gun into the holster to quickly dispatch of any annoying sword-wielding adversaries. The problem with the loose grip is the spring is really strong and the gun could go flying. A big drawback to having so much stuff is it's easy to lose small pieces in all these little nooks and crannies. I took a few minutes to look for it, but it's gone, baby, gone.
I had it, Marcus. I had it in my hand.
Oh well, Indy did just fine with that one in Temple of Doom. Or I could just grab one off of Wild Bill, since he has two.
Give it up, buckaroo!
Sharing is caring, Bill. A little sticky tack there to hold it in the holster. And he can't hold this one at all, but it can sit in the holster okay. A few more size comparisons with 83 Wild Bill, an aforementioned O-Ring Joe who can't stand as sturdy, and Harrison Ford is beside himself with an 83 Kenner Han Solo. It only came out 1 year after the Indy figure, but the likeness of Ford is so much better on the Han Solo figure.
He was good. He was very, very good.
The Indy likeness just looks like generic 70s toy face.
Now you're getting nasty.
Unfortunately, the fedora isn't removable, so you can't just pop an Endor Han Solo head onto it. Unlike Kenner's Star Wars figures, Indy has a knee bend. When the legs are moved all the way up, they go into this stretch pose. DDP would be impressed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh boy!
This stretched out style of sitting makes it impossible for him to sit in most vehicles, but it does allow him to straddle a horse, which was one of the toys released for the original Indy line. I don't have any 1/18th scale horses.
Oh, what a bummer.
So the big Pard from Bravestar will have to do. And atop another steel horse, the G.I. Joe Ram. Not a horrible fit. The coloring on the figure is good, except for the jacket. It looks black to me. I wish they had changed it from the original color scheme and lightened it a bit more, closer to a General Hawk brown jacket. But that's just because I never had the original and I'm not attached to every little detail the originals had. Left arm can do a 360, head can turn. Right arm is pretty useless thanks to the spring gimmick. Unlike LJ and Thundercats, which had spring gimmicks that could lock into different positions, this one feels like it's going to break if you try to do the same with it. It's stuck pointing forward. If you lock it into the holster without the gun though, you can use it to punch some snakes.
I hate snakes, Chuck! I hate them!
Or from overhead, a superstar Billy Graham karate master chop.
Everybody was kung fu fighting.
And while I was putting the snakes away, look what I spotted under one of the flag's gun turrets. Indy's once again complete. Next up, let's take a closer look at Marion's figure, wearing the dress that Belloc gives her before tossing her into the Well of Souls.
Beautiful.
There are some minor differences from the original, but it's still a pretty impressive recreation. The price of the original is pretty absurd, and this is a figure I had no interest in ever owning thanks to the price. So it's pretty cool to have one in mint condition for under 20 bucks. The lace material is really elaborate, and the face sculpt isn't terrible. Unlike Indy, Marion doesn't have any knee articulation. And she's wearing a pair of white heels, all hidden under the long dress. Standard 5 points of articulation, arms can do a 360, head can turn. She can't hold her monkey with her right hand, or her left. She has a bit of the same issue as Indy when sitting, the legs come out a bit, but not as much. And to see if she'll fit in a vehicle, let's bring out Kit. And it looks like Marion is already inside, a Hasbro Marion. Now Marion is beside herself, and despite the legs not being perfectly parallel, she can fit inside Kit just fine.
I am the voice of Knight Industry 2000's microprocessor, KITT for easy reference, Kit if you prefer.
And the monkey can fit in the back seat.
Well, I have to be going now, Renee.
May I suggest you put the car in the auto cruise mode?
Despite being a 40-year-old car, the Knight Rider can still leave Indy in the dust.
It's not the years, it's the mileage.
Once again proving that one man with a multi-million-dollar supercar can make a difference. Thanks for watching, and may your adventure never end. Good night, good luck, and God bless. Nerdmaste.